my name is Emily Wynn, and today I will be talking about critical issue, ethics. So firstly, what are ethics? So ethics is a system of moral principles and a branch of philosophy which defines what is good for individuals and society, as stated by BBC. They affect how people make decisions and lead their lives. Ethics is more or less concerned with what is good for individuals and society, and is also described as moral philosophy. Some arguments in ethics are good versus bad and right versus wrong. And next, here is how NPR, the National Public Radio, defines ethics in their company. So firstly, we have accuracy, then fairness, completeness, honesty, independence, impartiality, transparency, respect, excellence, and putting principles into action. And next, here is how ethics plays an integral part in education. In participatory culture specifically, as Jenkins specified in his article, Confronting the Challenges of Participatory Culture, Media Education for the 21st Century. On why we should teach media literacy, he addresses the three core flaws with the laissez-faire approach with participatory culture. So firstly, we have the participation gap. It does not address the fundamental inequalities in young people's access to new media technologies and the new opportunities for participation they represent. And next, the transparency problem is that this assumes that children are actively reflecting on their media experiences and thus can articulate what they learn from their participation. And finally, we have the ethics challenge, which assumes children on their own can develop the ethical norms needed to cope with a complex and diverse social environment online. In addition, the main focus or the one important goal of media education is to encourage young people to become more reflective about the ethical choices they make as participants and communicators and about the impact they have on others. An example would be asking and working through questions of ethical practices, which may be more valuable than the answers produced, because the process will help everyone to recognize and articulate the different assumptions that guide their behavior. As we think about new, meaningful pedagogical intervention, we must keep in mind three core concerns. Firstly, how do we ensure that every child has access to the skills and experiences needed to become a full participant in the social, cultural, economic, and political future of our society? Second, how do we ensure that every child has the ability to articulate his or her understanding of how media shapes perceptions of the world? And finally, how do we ensure that every child has been socialized into the emerging ethical standards that should shape their practices as media makers and as participants in online communities? And finally, onto my reaction. I was able to get a better understanding of how ethics relates to education overall with this assignment. After reading the article about the Brown student and his falsely accused accusation that led to his death, I believe it is imperative to teach ethics in the classroom. I actually took Education 126, which is the Ethics and Education class here at UCI, and through this class I was able to apply my own decision-making in controversial situations and learned right versus wrong, as well as different philosophers like Aristotle, Socrates, and their own philosophical thinkings. And finally, I do believe that it is critical to teach in education, especially nowadays with social media playing such an integral role in society. It is impossible to monitor what goes on the web, but teaching ethics may help students decide what is appropriate or not to post online, and therefore reflect on their humanistic nature of making good decisions. Thank you for listening to my presentation.